Hey, what's up? My name is Darko, and I'm here with Mr. Michael Unbroken, my friend. Welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thanks, brother.
Yo, we're just gonna have a little chat because this guy is a trauma survivor mentor. And I like to think of him as a powerhouse. Like, you're literally a powerhouse. I just came off his 2-day workshop. Well, it's actually, 4 days?
Yeah, it'll be 4 days.
But we crammed it into 2 days. And that was the first time you ever did it. And basically, it was a workshop all about discovering your trauma and discovering how that affects how you live your life, right? And also, discovering really who we are as people. And it was really enlightening for me. Even though I'm almost 30 years old, I've never really realized that some of the things that happened in my childhood actually have affected the way I've lived my life. And you actually made us realize how important that is to actually go back into our past and see how these lessons are, the lessons that we learned in our past, we're actually living out in the present, and we can actually change those stories about how we live our life. So really it's about understanding the power of our past and how we can actually change the stories that we have. And another thing I want to touch on before I introduce you is your story, So this guy right here, he was 6 years ago 140 pounds heavier. That's about 65 kilograms heavier than he is right now. That is absolutely amazing. That's like a whole person, right?
A whole person.
We were just talking about this off camera, like a whole person heavier. So clearly he knows what the hell he's doing, right? I mean, the mindset that this guy has is just absolutely amazing. Like, I've been amazed. Like, you're my friend, and I'm just like, wow, dude, like, you're amazing.
Thanks, man.
So welcome, man.
Yeah, thank you. I'm like super pumped to spend some time with you.
Yeah. So what's your story? Like, I'm sure everyone's wondering, what's your story?
Yeah, man. My story isn't that different than a lot of people in the world. I grew up in Indianapolis, which is the middle of America, a few hours south of Chicago. I know a lot of people from around the world are watching this. So my mother was a drug addict and alcoholic. By the time that I was 2, my father left. My house was so chaotic, like my mother, she cut my finger off. So this is the chaos in which I'm living. By the time I'm 6, almost 7, she marries literally the most abusive man you could ever imagine. Like, when you dream of the worst case scenario, that is somehow how I had ended up in. And by the time that I was 10, we were borderline homeless. I lived with 30 or 40 different families growing up in the Mormon church. And during that time, I saw even more trauma enter my life, between being molested from one of the church family mothers to being homeless and being beaten by these other families, locked in vans, like really crazy shit. By the time I'm 12, my grandmother adopts me. So I'm biracial, black and white. My grandmother's white, from Tennessee, a little town called Sunbright, population of literally 500 people. They have the funeral home, the police station, and the grocery store. That is this town, man. They didn't get a stoplight till the 80s. And so she moves to Indianapolis, raises her children, eventually adopts me and my brother. And my grandmother is insanely racist. So racist, we had a copy of Hitler's memoir, Mein Kampf, in our home. Like, that's how crazy this was. And so by 12, I'm smoking weed every day, don't graduate high school on time. By the time I'm 19, I'm like full-blown alcoholic, just partying my face off. And I was thinking, like, what is the solution to poverty, to the chaos of my life, to the abuse? And I was like, money. And so I made it my mission to make money in a legal way, because I've done some very illegal things leading up to that. Right, and I decided, okay, let me figure out how to navigate corporate America. And sure enough, I did. I became successful in corporate America. And by the time that I was 25, I was living the exact life that I wanted to live. Had the best car, the best condo, living in the nicest part of town. And I was miserable. And this is the time where I'm weighing in at about 345 pounds. I am drinking every night, smoking every night. My life is out of control, seeking love and validation from all the wrong places. And in that process, I had started a wedding photography business, and I was slowly growing that business, slowly becoming recognized, eventually even doing some campaigns for some larger corporations. And by the time I was 28, I was moving forward in that business. I'd left corporate America, but I was living a lie, this really crazy juxtaposition of my life as chaos, seeing 2 women who don't know about each other simultaneously for 2 years while being voted one of the best wedding photographers in Indiana. Right, so look at this juxtaposition of the chaos, because I was just hiding. I was seeking love and validation extrinsically and didn't have the strength yet inside of me to tap into loving myself. And when I was 28, after this insane night of partying, I wake up, I'm putting on a 4XL shirt, buttoning it up. I can't even get it all the way on. Wearing a size 47 pants, like, and just hating the person that I saw in the mirror. And in that moment, like, I realized I'd never really looked at myself in the mirror before. So I made a decision right there on the spot that morning. I was like, I'm just gonna look at myself. And I made eye contact with myself, and I did not break that eye contact for, it might have been 5 minutes, I really don't remember. But in that moment, I was so viscerally ashamed of the person that I had become that I decided right then everything had to change. And that was a slow process and a progression that took 6 years to get to where I am sitting now, right now, talking to you.
So, Michael, what was the lowest point in your life?
Yeah, man, that's a really hard, difficult question for me. Because there's been so many, like, I'll be honest with you, there's been a lot. I've had, like, the craziest life you could ever imagine. I think one of the lowest, though, was October, my 26th birthday, literally after my birthday party. I was in a relationship with a woman who, her background was similar to mine. And so we fought a lot because we grew up thinking like, oh, this is how relationships work. You fight and you yell at each other and then you make love and like, that's just how it goes. Well, that night, of course, like I just get obliterated drunk, right? It's my birthday. Of course I'm getting obliterated drunk. And she got obliterated drunk. And like, we get back to my apartment, to the condo at like 3:30 in the morning, close the bar down. Obviously, we've been drinking since like 5 in the afternoon or something like that. And we got into a fight because she was dancing with my best friend. That's it. This is the thing, man. I had this moment where I just lost it. I was like, what? You're going to dance with my best friend on my birthday? And like, I don't even dance at this time. Like, I didn't even dance with her. I danced with no one all night. I'm like hanging out. And I just remember being furious, man. Just like the maddest I'd ever been. And I was like, you know what? I don't want to be with you anymore. And I go in the bathroom. And I had a gun at the time. And I locked the bathroom door. And she could just hear me cocking that gun. And she started pounding on the door from the outside. And I put that gun in my mouth, and I just remember being like, you don't love me anyway. Obviously, you're dancing with my friend. Like the most ludicrous thing you could ever imagine and a reason to kill yourself, right? And I put that gun in my mouth, and she's pounding on the door, screaming. And I pull the trigger, and for whatever reason, the pin didn't fire. And I'm sitting here talking to you today. And that moment for me was my lowest, right? And there were more low moments to come after that, but when I really think about it, that was my lowest, because that's when I had just totally given up. And this had nothing to do with her actions. All she did was dance with my friend. I don't know how many people are going to be like super upset that their girl is dancing with their literal best friend. But it was more tied into that than just that moment of them dancing. This was my mom abandoning me. My grandmother telling me I'm not worthy and calling me racist names. All the girls in my childhood picking on me. All the girls running away from me. It was all accumulation of all these moments. And then you add, a whole bunch of vodka, a whole bunch of tequila, a whole bunch of cigarettes, a whole bunch of weed. And then you create this vicious concoction. And in that moment, and I don't know how, and I have no idea how that pin did not fire, because I've used guns literally since I was like 9 years old.
Wow.
I have clean guns, I have shotguns, you name it. I have at different points in my life owned 5 guns at a time. And call it divine intervention, call it the universe, call it whatever you want, man. I don't know what it is or what that moment was, but I put that gun in my mouth as she's banging on the door. Let me in, please just talk to me. And it didn't fire. And that to me is a moment I'll never forget, right? Because if that gun would have fired, I would not be here talking to you.
Yeah. And it's like reflecting on the emotions too, right? Like all the emotional stuff you were experiencing in that moment that, looking back at it, you can actually dissect why that happened and, figure out, okay, I felt like that because of this. But in the moment, obviously, your emotions are running sky high, and
and fueled by alcohol.
Whoa, what an amazing story, man! I can tell you practiced this, because when I first met you, literally you recited the story almost word for word as you just did, and obviously it was a longer version. But man, that's an amazing journey you've been on for the last 6 years. So I remember when I first met you, I asked you, like, what was that moment that you decided to change? And for you, it was really simple. But it was interesting for me to listen to that because, I feel like I look at myself in the mirror every day, right? But there's so many other people that don't. And it's interesting. How old were you when you looked at yourself in the mirror for the first time?
That was 28. Yeah, so I was in this place then where I really just had to accept the darkness on both sides, the darkness I had caused and the darkness that had been presented to me. And I've discovered in this journey, like, the only way to get to light, the only way to become the person that you are is, like, you have to be willing to step into that darkness and confront that dragon, that demon, whatever that thing is that harnesses our energy and steals our soul. Because that's the only way you can come out the other side. And I had been avoiding that through drugs, alcohol, and women for the majority of my life, right? Yeah. I was an emotional recluse. I didn't cry for a decade. Like, my life was a fiction of what I thought it could be, and I was scared to tap into myself. And that moment was an awakening, but I think it was also a part of, like, I'd given up. Like, I'd given up on, like, the person that I could be because I was trapped in the vortex.
And you touched on something before about hiding, right? Like, you were hiding. Like, why do you think you were hiding? Because a lot of us do it, right? Like, I've done it before. I still do it in some areas of my life, like hiding from the work that I know I should be doing. Like, why do we do that?
Because it's hard. Because it's the hardest thing that you'll ever do. Because looking at yourself in the mirror is literally the hardest thing you'll ever do. Because that's the one place where you can't lie. I can lie to you, I can lie to this camera, I can lie to everyone in the world about everything you could ever imagine. But I can't lie to the reflection in the mirror. And that's why it's so difficult. Because especially when you're from a trauma state, imagine you grow up in this scenario and people say you're never good enough, you're stupid, you're retarded, no one loves you, you're overweight, you are a child who is a product of a chaotic environment where your friends are getting murdered, there's drugs and alcohol everywhere, by the time you're 19 you're an alcoholic. Like, you are the story you tell yourself. And for me, my story was all of those things. And the hardest thing that I could do is face that truth, because I thought that my trauma didn't actually control me. I thought that I was the one in charge of it. Whenever I thought about my trauma, whenever I thought about these things, I pretended that they didn't exist, while all the while they were eating me from the inside. You know, the craziest thing is, we're having this conversation, you know more about me in 3 minutes than people who knew me my entire life did. Because I was so, like, I had to take that trauma and push it as far away from me as possible to disassociate from it, because it's hard and it's scary. And when I started to associate with it by doing the work, this is, going to therapy, journaling, getting in shape, putting healthy food in my body, really accepting and finding self-love. When I started doing those practices, I started associating that trauma, and it became easier for me to share. And so instead of my story holding control over me and me being scared of it, being frightened of it, because it's that hardest thing, then I started to take ownership of it, right? Because I said, you know what, if this is my story, this is my journey, well, I can't do anything about it. I cannot change anything that happened leading up to this moment right now, but I can choose how I live my life moving forward.
Yeah, and when we spoke before, you shared something with me. You said, I can't help anyone, right? Like, literally, we can't help anyone. It's a sad realization, but it's true, right? We literally can't help anyone. But we can help inspire people, right? Like what you're doing right now. But my question to you is, when you started out, when you looked at yourself in the mirror, you didn't like what you saw, who inspired you? Or was that enough inspiration for you to make a change?
Yeah, I think it's just a series of people over a long period of time.
Yeah.
Right? In that moment, like, I had to find the agency within myself to move forward.
Yeah.
But I could go all the way back to high school and having a teacher who failed me my senior year telling me, Michael, I failed you because you didn't do this thing that you promised me you would do. And that when I showed up to his class on the first day of the semester, the second half of my senior year, I said, I'm not coming to your class, Mr. Bush. I'm just literally never coming to the 7:15 in the morning class. I'm out running, I'm doing things at night. Like, this isn't happening. He goes, I get it, right? I get it. He's seen everything you could imagine in 20 years of teaching in public school. And he said, well, do homework and check in with me once a week. I didn't do that one single time my senior year, and he failed me. And so I had to go and talk to him. And I walked up to his classroom when they posted the graduation list outside of the auditorium. And I knew immediately the reason why. I knew I didn't graduate and I wasn't going to be graduating on time with my friends because I had made that decision. But I was pissed. And I go up to his classroom and I say, what the fuck is wrong with you, man? Why did you not pass me? And he has this really amazing moment with me and he goes, first off, I'm an adult and you don't talk to me like that. You apologize. And like, I'm storming around like punch a locker. I'm so mad because I'm an 18-year-old and I'm like, everything should be my way. And he goes, you need to know something really important, that if you want things in life, you have to earn them. Nothing's going to happen because of your charms and good looks. And that to me was an early catalyst because that's what drove me to business. That's what drove success in that venue, right? But over the course of like growing my entrepreneurial careers, I started leveraging all of these major people: Chase Jarvis, Neil Strauss, Brene Brown, Mel Robbins, you name it, man. Like comes to mind right now, Tom Bilyeu, Gary Vee, like these names that we hear synonymous with business. And what I realized is what these people all knew, what I didn't know, and what I was slowly discovering is that they own themselves in their entirety. And so in a sense, because of the lessons I was learning from digesting their books, podcasts, everything, their websites, their blogs, what I had discovered was I was seeking permission from these people to be myself. And I noticed it also in celebrities and in Hollywood. When you see these eccentric people, and you go, wow, this guy's like peacocking, or this woman is like out of control in her style. Lady Gaga, for instance, is like living these lavish, insane lifestyles. You go, that's not a real person. But in fact, I think those people are more true to themselves than anyone else. And so I realized like all these people had been giving me permission, but I had to step into it a little bit more.
Absolutely. And what do you think it means to be true to yourself? Because what I believe is self-love trumps everything, right? Like once we get to that point where we have self-love, we're happy in our own skin. Like everything works. Like everything just becomes more effortless almost because we love ourselves. We can easily say no to the things that don't serve us. So what do you think is... I forgot my question.
Well, let me talk about self-love, because self-love is one of those things that is literally what it sounds like.
Yep.
Self-love. We have to give we have to give ourselves permission and the space to love ourselves. And that's insanely difficult. And I'm speaking from my background.
Yeah.
It was so hard for me to love myself because I grew up in an environment where no one did.
Right.
Love was not something rewarded nor talked about in my home. And in fact, emotions of any kind would get your head smashed into a wall. And so for me, like finding self-love took a very long, long, long time. And that was through the process of therapy, through the process of reading and journaling. I read an incredible book, and it is called Radical Acceptance by Tara Brach. And radical acceptance, the entire concept of the book is like accepting yourself for who you are, for your flaws, for your indiscretions, for your past, for your future, and who you are now. And what I realized, like I was always beating myself up for all the things that I had done. I was calling... Aaron, one time I got published in a worldwide fashion magazine. This thing went from Tokyo to Oslo to LA. This thing went everywhere. In my photography career, I'd also done some portrait work and commercial work. And I get a copy of it, and I throw it in the trash can. And my girlfriend of the time, she takes it out of the trash. She's like, what are you doing? Why would you not keep this? And I go, because anyone could do that. And she goes, no, but you did that. And she kept it, and she put it on our bookshelf, and I never looked at it. And in retrospect, like looking back on that moment, I'm so happy that she did. Because now I look at that moment and go, man, I'm really proud of what I did. Because no, not anyone could have done that. Because in that moment, that was me creating and harnessing and using my energy and my talents to do something really special and profound. And I think it starts with, we have to give ourselves accolades. We have to reward ourselves, even if it's little things. Even if it's you went to the gym for 3 minutes and hopped on the elliptical, like we have to be proud of those small accomplishments. And then we have to be even more proud of our big accomplishments. And even more than all of that, we have to share it, right? Internally, we have to be grateful for the things that we do. But I think it's also very, very important that we share it with our community, right? Because the reality is, like, even though these things are things that we may do by ourselves, like, we are part of this greater collective conscience of human beings. And we have to leverage our community, because I will tell you this, that I know from firsthand experience, I would not be here sitting in beautiful Bali on this beautiful warm day, sweating my face off, having this conversation with you, if it weren't for the community of people that brought me up, and the people that supported me in those dark times, and the people that leveraged me and said, hey man, you're doing amazing things, thank you for sharing this. And it's just a slow process, right? And self-love is something that we have to figure out what it means, because it's going to be different for everyone. And for me, it's like accolades, and it's going and taking time off when I've done a big project, and it's massage, and it's going to the gym, the food I put in my body, and sleep. Those to me are all self-love practices, the polar opposite of all the things that I didn't used to do.
Right. And that's what I want to talk about, because so many people watching this, like, of course, I'm in the health space, you're in the health space, even though you're not, like, that's not your business, but you are in the health space, because clearly look at you, right? Like, from where you were to where you are now, clearly you have all these habits down. And that's one of the reasons why we're doing this, is because we want to, bring the consciousness up on this topic of health, really, and mindset and mind-body connection, all that kind of stuff. And really self-love, right? We were talking about self-love and how you didn't used to love yourself, but now you do. So that journey, that process is what I feel like most people watching need to go on. Or some people have started it, which is great. But it's like, how do you cultivate those habits? Because that's what really it's all about, right? It's not about, people ask me, oh, how do I get motivation to go to the gym? It's like, no, it's a habit, right? It's a habit for you to go to the gym. It's a habit for me to work out. It's a habit for you to sleep well every night, meditate, do massages weekly. Like, it's a habit. It's not, we don't need motivation for it. So how do people cultivate these habits?
One step at a time. Yeah, I'll tell you exactly how I did it. This is one step at a time. And when I made a mistake, when I stepped out of the habit, when I went back to a bad behavior, I didn't beat myself up. I think that is the most important thing that I would tell anyone, and anyone watching this. Like, when you mess up, do not beat yourself up, because it is gonna happen, because we are human. Yes. If we were robots, it'd be easy. We'd press a button, we hit Alt-Control-Delete, we'd reset the hard drive, and we'd be back to normal. Yeah. But that's just not how the human brain works. The human brain subsides in habit. And so if your habit is in bad things, it's going to take time to reprogram that, right? And so step one for me was just identifying. I believe that we all know the things that we should be doing. I believe that intrinsically in here, in our heart, in our soul, we know the things that we should be doing. We know that we should not be drinking a fifth of tequila 3 times a week, smoking 2 packs of cigarettes, eating McDonald's for breakfast and lunch every single day. We know we shouldn't be doing these things, but oftentimes those things are also tied into trauma, right? And so sometimes those behaviors are trigger behaviors, and sometimes those behaviors are avoidance behaviors. So I think step one first is you have to just kind of identify why. Why am I not moving towards the direction that I know I should be moving? If you can identify that, and you may need to go and seek guidance from a professional, right? You may need, you may need to come to Think Unbroken, right? Or you may need to go and sit with a therapist and identify what is that thing that is keeping me from taking these steps. And once you can do that, it becomes much easier, right? Because for me, I knew that I didn't eat well because my self-value was tied in food from experiences when I was young and food being taken away from me. So when I didn't have food and I'm in a lack of abundance, once I have the financial freedom to have food, then it becomes immense abundance. And so I want it whenever I can get it, right? So if I can identify that behavior, but why terrible food? Yeah. Well, terrible food was because growing up, we ate canned goods and pantry food and food from the gas station. This sounds crazy, but I honestly do not remember eating a salad my entire childhood. I don't remember any fresh green vegetables in my home ever. And so it's no surprise to me that by the time I'm in my 20s, I'm still not eating salads. Food to me, nourishment to me, is canned goods. It is gummy bears. It is frozen pizza. Yeah. Right, and so I had to identify, like, why am I eating those things? I'm looking at the changes in my body because I actually used to be an athlete. Growing up, I played 4 sports. I was a letterman in high school. Like, I was an athlete. I even wrestled amateur up until the time I was 19, and my knee totally gave out on me. And back then, even my diet wasn't great. I was eating like 5 bananas a day and like tons of white bread and turkey breast, right? Still not healthy, but better than like frozen pizzas. And so I'd identify like the why behind that eating behavior, and then I had to educate myself. I believe that education is the most important catalyst to any habit behavior change. If we can understand the why, then we need to understand the how. And the how for me came in a lot of different methods, but one of the most important one is I found a guy named Chris Kessler, who was a paleo doctor, and like his science behind being paleo just made sense to me, right? Yes. So I think we have to identify with the things that make sense to us. And the way that he talked about food, particularly one thing that hit me really hard that I never thought about before, he says, don't eat anything that has an expiration date on it because that's not food. I had never heard this concept before, and that started the process, and then the Whole30 and things like that. And also one of the things that I have to mention that was really, really, really important was a girlfriend who was very much a healthy eater, a person who ate salads every single day. Right. And so we talk about we are the 5 people that we spend the most time with. So her healthy habits eventually started rubbing off on me. When we started, like, I might eat a salad with her once every 5 days. And eventually it became a process where it's every single day. So it's education of the why and the how. And then once you start stepping into it, it's giving yourself permission. I think a lot of people make huge mistakes in building habits and immediately going, okay, this is what I have to do right now from this moment forward, no matter what. And that amount of pressure is huge. And I don't think many people can actually hold themselves accountable to that. I think it's a lot easier to go, okay, in the next 30 days, I'm going to eat 24 salads. Instead of the next 30 days, I'm only going to eat salad with olive oil and lime and salt. And I'm not going to eat anything that I've eaten in the last 25 years of my life. That's almost impossible. But if we can adapt the behaviors slowly and step into them, well, then on the other side, we find that, you know, I actually would rather have the salad than the frozen pizza. Because then my body starts talking to me and I start listening because I'm associating all of these things. And I realize, oh yeah, eating that frozen pizza makes me feel like shit. Eating that salad makes me feel incredible.
Yeah, exactly. So that then comes back to awareness, right? Like being aware of how these foods are affecting your body. But before I want to go into the food stuff, I want to go back a little bit because you reminded me of something in my own life. So oftentimes I encounter people, like you've probably seen this too, like people that are addicted to a certain food. Like, for example, I'm addicted to ice cream or, you know, whatever. Addicted to gummy bears in your case. Yeah. My case too, gummy bears. So it just prompted the memory of why I'm addicted to gummy bears. Well, was addicted. Like now I can say no to them, but that's another story. But it's from my childhood. It's like my parents used to give me Haribos, right? Like everyone knows Haribos, like the famous German gummy bears, right? They're all over the world. And whenever my dad went shopping, he would come back and he would always have like a pack of gummy bears. And so I grew up to learn to eat gummy bears, right? Because that was what was in the cupboards. And that was what I was craving because it was sugar. It was nice. It was tasty. So there was very sparingly put around the cupboard. Like there wasn't many gummy bears. So when I grew up and got money, what did I do? I went to the store and bought all the gummy bears, right? I bought all of them because I had money. I was like, shit, I don't just have to get one pack. Like my dad, like I can get all the packs. And so that's what I did. And then it gradually became more and more addicted to it to where it was actually a habit to do the wrong thing, which is eat gummy bears every day. Like I was literally eating it every single day and not think anything of it because it's just what I did, right? It's just the way it is. But then there's a quote from the book. I can't get it exactly right, but it's like, you are in control of what you're aware of and you're not in control of what you're not aware of. From Anthony Mello, the book's called Awareness. And it's so true, right? It's like we're not aware of the things that are controlling us. And those are the very things, like 6 years ago, were controlling you until you decided to control it and become aware of, for example, eating salad instead of pizza, for example, stuff like that. So really, let's talk more about awareness because most people are not aware of how bad their current situation really is, just like you was. So you can share your own experiences about that.
Yeah, awareness is hard. right? Because disassociation happens.
Yep.
And it's not necessarily exclusively based to trauma, though I do have theories about trauma and obesity, right? Especially in trauma and the bad behaviors and things like this. I have my own theories, but I think that awareness is something that we all can be better about, right? Awareness for me really only started when I allowed my brain to be present in my body. When I allowed this and this to be in sync, because I always felt like my body was out of my control because I hid from it, right? I hated my body. I was ashamed of it. I was ashamed of the person that I was, right? Because I actually been obese twice in my life. When I was 10, I probably weighed about 175 pounds.
Whoa.
Right? That's a 10-year-old child.
Whoa.
At Walmart, they have a section called the Husky section. And this is for kids my size, right? Kids who are like 10, 12 years old, who are a little bit too small for adult size clothes, but definitely too big for children's clothes. And so like if I were lucky enough to get new clothes, it would be from the Walmart Husky section. So imagine identifying that immediately. And so I disassociate from the bullying, right? Because that's where it really started, right? People picking on me, calling me fat, things like that, right? The things that normally happen when you're an overweight child in the community. As an adult, my disassociation was around literally everything. And I had to take the steps to become associated. One of the most powerful ways that this happened, though, is like I had to seek professional help. Like there is such a huge stigma in therapy, in society, even in 2019, that I think that we have to continue to work towards to break. Because these therapists, these people who are practitioners of mental health are going to help to get you to where you need to go. Like you would not take your car to a mechanic of a guy who only services cookie machines, right? That would never work. And so a lot of times with our mental health, we're too scared to like step in and go, you know, actually I need assistance. I need someone who can help guide me. And as I spent time with my therapist, who was this incredible human being, crazy smart, who also was relative, he shared similar experiences as me. So we related. And because of that relation, I was able to share with him more openly and honestly. And in doing so, he helped me understand behaviors and the reasons that I did certain things because of actions of my past. And that's when association began. That's where it like really began. But when I really took hold of it, that came in meditation. That came in yoga. That came in like really putting my brain and body together. And the difference is when you're disassociated, you will continue to make that mistake over and over and over. What's the definition of insanity, right?
Yep.
And so when you associate and you rationalize and you understand why you make that mistake, and then in turn choose to no longer make that mistake, then that's where association really starts to play a role in your life. Because that mistake now is something you go, oh yeah, you know what, I did that thing, I don't feel good about it. Maybe I need to apologize, maybe I need to rectify it. Maybe it was I ate a double cheeseburger from McDonald's and what I actually need to do is go to the gym tomorrow for a little bit longer, right? And it's not punishing, right? So when we realize and we understand these things, we just don't punish ourselves. Instead, we understand the why, and we continue to move forward and not making those behaviors. So association, I think, is just about understanding. It's about giving yourself the space. But you have to figure out like where that starts for you. For some people, it might be journaling, right? For me, I journal every single day. It's the first thing that I do when I wake up after I drink water and I stretch. I write. Because then that helps me understand my place in the world for the day and what direction I want to head. And then I meditate, right? Because for me, the meditation process is another subset of association. So it's about really just giving ourselves the understanding of ourself and the environment.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. And you know, it's like ego is one of the reasons why we don't go for help, don't ask for help. I know in my own life, I didn't ask for help for many years because I was like, yeah, they can't help me. But that kept me stuck, that belief, right? So it comes back to beliefs and habits, right? Like that belief, that story I kept telling myself was actually holding me back. And I wasn't aware of the fact that that was the case. I was going through life wondering why I wasn't getting ahead, like in my business. Why am I not getting ahead? But it's because I have a story that I'm playing out in my head that no one can help me. Mm-hmm. Therefore, if I believed that, which I did, no one could help me. And it's just crazy. Like now I'm at your workshop. I mentioned to you, I actually got up and spoke openly about things in my past, stuff that I've never shared publicly. Now I'm practicing being more vulnerable, being more open. Because, you know, when you bring out those emotions that you've been suppressing all your life, it's actually therapy. Like, for example, journaling is one form of therapy, right? Meditation, yoga, working out, all these things. And I think that's what helps people improve the level of self-love they have for themselves. Like, I do all these things too, and it's just amazing how much more grounded you feel in your own body, right? It's like, you look back 6 years in the past, if you looked at that guy, like that picture, what do you think? What thoughts are going through your head? If you look at the previous, the old Michael.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you're still Michael, but
Yeah, of course. You know, that's a question that no one's ever asked me before. That is the old Michael. And the person sitting in front of you is a person I created. I have taken the agency in my life to become exactly who I believe that I could be. And the person before, that person who was smoking, drinking, lying, cheating, doing everything in the world to do anything to avoid being this person right here, because this person right here is a scary person to be when you are in that trauma state. And when I think about the person that I was, I look at that person as a hurt person who is terrified of their true inner power. That was a person who would much rather get hit by a car than say, I'm sorry. That was a person who would rather lie to their best friends than admit the truth over stupid shit. Stuff, dude, that didn't even matter, right? In retrospect, looking back. It was a sabotager. I was a person who was trapped in my story, right? And when I look back on that person, I just think about the courage that it took for me to take the first step, right? Because I had a choice to make. I was facing death. My lifestyle was going to kill me. And it wasn't that long after before I was laying in the hospital. And in 2015, I went to the doctor 47 times, right? Because of my lifestyle choices leading up. Even though I'd started the practices of going in the direction of health, it was too late. I already done the damage and I had to pay the taxes. And that person, that Michael, those first 28 years of my life, that was just a scared little boy who needed help. And now as I stand in front of you, like, I'm the man that I've chosen to become because I was willing to step into who I am entirely. My flaws and my successes, the thing that make me amazing and the things that make me kind of shitty, right? And that's okay with me. And I love myself. And it's just all the work that it's taken. And when I look at that guy, if I go to that moment in that mirror, like, it's the proudest moment that I have in my life because I was willing to finally do the hardest thing that I ever had to do, and I was look at myself in the eyes.
Damn, that's powerful stuff. So, we were talking about, you know, looking at yourself in the mirror. Now you're proud of that, right? You're proud of the person that you created. And that's the very thing that I've rediscovered at your workshop. Is, obviously I knew this before. I mean, I've created my life how I want to. We're in Bali. It was beautiful, right? But it's like that constant reminder that you can actually create exactly what you want at any given time. Like, our thoughts create our reality, right? Like, we are the stories we tell ourselves, like you said. You kept on saying that. I kept that stuck in my head. And it's like, we can literally create whatever we want. So then why are we... And like I always tell people, it's all about what you focus on. And I'm sure you're of the same opinion. It's, if you're focusing on, like, for example, visualization, like, you can close your eyes and just think about what you want. Those thoughts create a chemical reaction in your body to make your body actually, you know, feel better. Like, you can literally, our thoughts, it's not just about what we put in our mouth, it's about our thoughts as well. It's like our thoughts and what we put in our mouth are our health, right? So it's like, we can heal ourselves. I've met people that have healed themselves just from, it sounds crazy, but positive thinking, right? So it's like, people watching this, a lot of them, because I've talked to them every day, they don't realize how bad it is. And they don't realize that the path they're on is not the path that they should be on. Because I always tell people it's not just about them. It's about who you're affecting, who you're, you know, inspiring. And a lot of people have children. So, for example, if they're that person that doesn't love themselves, right? They're that person that abuses their body. They're just passing down those same habits to their children. And again, they're not aware of it. So it's like, hopefully those people watching this video listening to your story because it's very powerful. But really, the whole point of this is to shine light on you and us and the real issues at hand here. Like, we're talking about health, we're talking about longevity, being happy, right? So what are the steps that people should take to, first of all, love themselves more and get on that journey to, true happiness?
Yeah, that's the question, right? Like, that's like the question.
Yes.
If I could write that down in a book, I'd be a billionaire tomorrow, right? Like, that's the reality.
Yes.
The reason that the self-help book industry is one of the biggest industries on planet Earth is because it's permissionism. And we seek that from an outside source.
Yes.
And so what I would challenge people to do, if you're seeking happiness, first identify, like, what are your wants, your needs, your interests, your personal values, right? Do you understand yourself? Because it's one thing to say, you know what would make me really happy is a Maserati, right? And then you go and buy this car and you realize nothing has changed.
Yes.
But what if you know that the thing that would really make you happy would be opening an orphanage, right? Think about the difference of those two things, right? One is communal based and helping the people around you, and then one is fulfilling a want, right? Where do those things align with who you are as a person? I think this all comes back to understanding. There is no golden rule. That's why there's a million self-help books, because everyone's going to find something different in them that's going to give them the ability to step forward. In the same way that I found that ability through all of these entrepreneurs, right? Because believe it or not, these entrepreneurs, like, they're like self-help gurus, maybe in disguise, right? And I think that you have to identify first who you are, and second, like, what it is that would make you happy. Because if you're looking at extrinsic sources for happiness, if you're looking at the things around you for happiness, but this isn't happy, you're never going to get there. So take a step back and let's first identify, like, what would really make me happy? Not necessarily even in the moments, but in the long term. Is it a relationship? Is it partnerships? Is it friendships? Is it coming to the realization that you need help? Is it going to the gym every day? Is it taking the little tiny steps, right? I always remind myself, when I started going to the gym, man, and taking it seriously, which was way different than what I had been doing, because I never actually stopped going to the gym. If you go and you look at my credit card statements over the course of my 20s, there was a monthly deposit coming out of my card for a gym, right? And so I would go to the gym, and I'd get there, and I'd smoke a cigarette in my car. I'd go in there, I'd do the elliptical for 15 minutes, I'd bench press 5 times, I'd get back in my car, smoke a cigarette, go home and drink a fifth of tequila, or I would go and drink a bottle of wine, or I also had gummy bears. I had a jar of gummy bears on my counter that I'd go home and I'd just eat these gummy bears all night. But I decided what would make me happy was being in shape. How do I get to the point where I can do push-ups and pull-ups and I can run for 5 minutes without feeling like I'm dying? How can I commit to myself to be healthy? Because I know that health and longevity would make me happy. Because laying on this doctor's bed and looking at the lights and knowing that I'm probably going to die unless I make radical changes, like even more radical than the ones that are already made, inspired me. Because for me, my happiness comes in helping people, right? Because I'm able to identify that. I'm able to identify, like, guiding people to the process and helping them know that trauma, though it may be our foundation, is not our future. Like, that to me is the most important thing. And that's like, all these other practices lead me towards my happiness. Like seeing a room full of people going through the workshop and finding out who they really are, and then finding out and getting messages like, wow, this thing changed my life. That to me is happiness. And so that's a subset in this hierarchy of what I want in my life around fitness and love and happiness and truth and friendship, right? So I would challenge people, if you don't know what makes you happy, get out a pen and paper and just start writing all of the things that bring you the most happiness and joy in your life. And then think about how those things correspond with your wants, needs, and interests and your personal values. And if you don't know those things, you got to start identifying those too, right? Because then it's like creating a blueprint for the map of.
I absolutely agree with that, because at the workshop, it's really about discovering who you are, right? Like you said. And what I relearned at your workshop is you can have a goal. That's fine. Everyone can have a goal. But like you said, the Lamborghini, ask yourself why you want that. And then it becomes harder, right? It's like, shit, why do I want a Lamborghini? Like, okay, and how much value will that add to your life? How will that make your life better? It's like, damn, if I have a Lamborghini, how is that going to improve my life? It's not. Therefore, do I really need a Lamborghini? No, I don't, right? It's like just those questions, those form of questions, because most people don't question the goal that they want. And then they get it, right? They work their whole life to attain this thing, and they realize it didn't make them happy because they didn't ask the question why and what value it actually add to their life.
Think about all the people who work jobs that they hate, which I was a victim of. I worked in corporate America doing a job that I hated to make a crap ton of money that did not make my life better.
Yep.
And now I feel like I am moving towards goals of things that are aligned with who I am as a person that make my life exponentially better.
Yeah, exactly. And that's really what it's about, right? Like, for example, what you said about writing down your goals and why you want it and stuff like that. Like, just taking out a pen and paper and just writing. That practice in and of itself is something that a lot of people don't do, right? Like, entrepreneurs do it in business, but you'll find that a lot of entrepreneurs don't do it with their health. It's like, what do you want your health to look like? Like, how does your health look like in 5-10 years from now? And, you know, what person do you have to become to step into that? And you can literally be that person now, right? Like, you can own that now and start making different choices now, right? So it's like thinking about the future and bringing it to the present. It's like, what do I want to be? All right, now what do I need to create right now? Like, for example, one of my goals is to have deep, meaningful connections with my close friends, like yourself, for example, like Nathan. Like, we have these deep conversations. We're not just talking about the weather. Like, we're doing this, right? We're friends, but we're doing this, right? So that's what I've wrote down. And I'm actually realizing that because that's what I want. That's what's going to make me happy. It's like we're shining a light on ourselves. I'm like bringing on smart people like yourself, and we're just having a great time. We're having fun. This is not work. And it's just how we design our life. But everyone, we all have the same opportunity to do that. So this is really what it's about. And it's about, for this, for example, like myself, like I'm obviously in the health space, like designing how you want your health to look as well. You know, like a lot of us, we go through life and we're conditioned to eat a certain way, like, you know, all this sugar, all this crap. And it's like, we can actually reverse that and decide to be healthy. Like, make a decision, make a choice that you're going to be healthy, right? Like you did.
Well, and you know, that starts with mindset, right?
Yeah.
This is what I come back to, like permission. Like, I think that there's some steps that you have to be willing to take. You have to give yourself permission first to change. You have to say, you know what? Yeah, I need to make this change in my life, right? We know. If you dare tell me you don't know the things that you need to do in your life, I'm going to call you a liar.
Yeah.
Because we know. That's just innately what we're capable of doing because we're human beings who have a brain and a body. And when you step back, you have to be like, okay, don't beat yourself up. We're going to take a step back.
Yep.
And when you take a step back, the most important thing is take a step forward. Even if you end up back to where you were a moment ago, that's fine. And if you take a step back again, take a step forward. Get to where you were and then continue to move forward. Right? People always say, well, if you take a step back, take 5 steps forward. Well, I would actually challenge that. I'd say get back to where you were and then step forward again. Like, let's take a little bit of pressure off of ourselves, right? You got to leverage your community. You got to share what you're trying to do with your people around you. This is one of the most important things that I did. When I started opening up and I shared about my trauma, everything in my life changed. And all of a sudden, people were reaching out. People I've known literally for my entire adult life were reaching out to me and telling me about stories about their parents when they were 7. Right? My friends were reaching out to me. People that I've literally known were like, hey, I relate to this. Thank you for opening up the space for me to share this. Right? And then most importantly, like I really truly believe this. And people who know me, like you, who really, really know me, know that I believe in this more than I believe in anything. We have to stop making excuses.
Oh, yeah.
No excuses, just results. That is the way that I live my life. If you are making excuses for anything outside of going directly in the path that you want to go, you're lying to yourself. If there is a goal, if I put a goal here and I say it's Michael, lose 150 pounds, be the healthiest that you've ever been, be able to do 25 pull-ups and push-ups and do elliptical bikes and CrossFit and run marathons and all these things. And if I don't do those for any fucking reason, it's an excuse. And so I dedicate and live my life to that concept. No excuses, just results. Like, yes, it's all fine and good and have the mindset, but we have to have accountability for ourselves, right? And so this is where I think leveraging the community can come back to play too. Yes. Because if I go, hey Aaron, I'm working on this thing, I just wanted to let you know that I'm working on it. Can you do me a favor, man, and just check in with me, let's call it once a week, even for 5 minutes, and just go, hey man, did you make it to the gym and do that thing that you said you were gonna do once a week? And I tell you no, then maybe, Aaron, you'll go, well, you told me to help you with this.
Yes.
Why are you cheating yourself, right? So I think having accountability, not only from our friends and our family, but also especially within, like that's the catalyst for all of this, man. We have to be willing to step into who we know we can be.
Yeah.
Yeah, so being accountable to someone that you deeply don't want to disappoint, that's huge, right? It's like, for example, but it has to be someone that you don't want to disappoint. Like, that's key for me, at least. It's like, if I know that I don't want to disappoint this person, then I'm going to hold myself accountable and I'm going to do the thing that I need to do. So, yeah, having an accountability partner or community is very, very important. And what's the time on this? That we've been going for like 45 minutes, something like that? Yeah, we've been going for quite a while. So, yeah, we just want to, closing comments, just want to wrap it up. So any closing comments for people that are starting out? Like, I know the power of what you do. Like, your trauma workshop is absolutely amazing. So do you have any closing remarks for people watching this?
Yeah, I think the number one biggest thing is that we have to remember that it's okay that we are not where we thought we were going to be. We have to remember that it's okay, that we have time. We have to be patient in health and life and business and career and relationship. Like, we have to give ourselves patience.
Yes.
We have to not beat ourselves up. We have to hold ourselves accountable. We have to write these journals and write these goals and leverage our friends and do all of these things if we want to get to where we're going. But it all starts with identifying where we came from, how we got to here, and where we want to go, right? So it's all association. It's all about us understanding who we are.
Absolutely. And it's also, you have permission. Like, we give you, right?
Yeah.
Michael and I give you permission.
Do it.
To go and do it, right?
Do it. You know what it is. Just go do it.
Yes.
Like, stop making excuses.
Yes. It's like so many people are waiting for people to say it's okay. You can do it.
It is okay. It's okay. Go and do it.
And just know that there's people out there that want to help you. Like, Michael and I are guys that, in our values, right? One of our values is helping others, right? Like, giving back. So there are people out there that want to help you. So you just got to reach out and not be afraid. Like I was for 6 years of reaching out for help.
Yeah.
Like you said.
That's the moment. That's the difference. Is when this is permission, right?
Yes.
We give ourselves permission to ask for help.
Yes.
Hey, I need to go to Think Unbroken. I need to reach out. I need to go and hang out with Aaron and get more fit. I need to ask for help.
Yes.
Like, we have to just say, okay, yeah, it's okay. You're not alone in this. Like, I think that's what people forget.
Yes.
Is that we're not actually alone.
Yes.
And for every person who thinks that they are, there are a million other people who are in the same exact boat as them right now.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, so guys, awesome, man.
Hey, man,
chat.
thank you. Yeah,
We cut it short.
pleasure.
We can chat for hours and hours
Totally,
and hours.
man. Yeah.
Well, yeah. See you in the next one.
See you guys.